The next item on the agenda is the federal IRC listening session of the member 2024 hurricane recovery needs. And we have Greg Vaday of the U.S. Economic Development Association. Mr. Vaday, are you on the phone?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Hi. Good. I'm so sorry. I thought I was told you were going to be on the phone. The purpose of this item is to provide a brief introduction of the Federal Interagency Recovery Coordination Team, followed by IRC members listening to you all on your natural resource recovery assistance needs. We've heard some already today from the recent hurricanes Helene and Milton. This connects to our 2025 CCMP Activity 3.2, bringing partners together, providing resources, and coordinating natural disaster events.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So I'm Greg Vaday. I'm with the U.S. Economic Development Administration. We're part of the Department of Commerce, and our focus is economic development. And what I'm going to talk about today is the Interagency Recovery Coordination, what it is. Obviously, the federal government has a lot of acronyms. IRC is one of them. You're going to be hearing, you have heard about, you've heard that acronym quite a bit. I'm going to tell you about the IRC. I'm going to try to demystify what it is and provide kind of a simple overview of the process. So next slide, please. The Interagency Recovery Coordination process comes out of the National Disaster Recovery Framework process. And that essentially gives the framework for how the federal government works in conjunction with state and local partners to provide support, to support communities that have been impacted by wildfires, hurricanes, earthquakes, and other natural disasters. And the IRC provides support to affected communities to identify impacts from the storms, and also to understand what the unmet needs are on a broad basis, and then to provide support to those communities to look at ways to move forward and help to recover from those unmet needs. Next slide, please. So basically, the IRC is basically a connection of federal agencies that work in conjunction with our state counterparts, and we bring together knowledge and try to bring together a unified team so that we can provide an integrated response to disaster recovery. We know, I've been through many hurricanes in Florida, starting with Hurricane Irma back almost 10 years ago now. And hurricanes, natural disasters are messy. They don't recognize borders. We have compounding issues that affect natural resources, which is the focus of you all. But there are issues that also impact housing, economic development, workforce, infrastructure, and the integrated recovery support function brings together this unified team to address all those things in a comprehensive manner. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, the IRC process led by FEMA really is here to provide a coordinated response, help the local governments achieve better outcomes. When we're organized, we get better outcomes. When we have a clear vision of the impacts, when we have a clear understanding of what the unmet needs are, then we can start to help our state and local affected communities understand and begin to formulate a unified approach to long-term recovery. Next slide, please. There are basically 6 RSFs. You'll hear that acronym as well. RSF stands for Recovery Support Function. So EDA, my agency, leads the Economic Recovery Support Function. So that means we're looking at economic development. But I would say, just to be very clear, we understand that economic development intersects with all the other RSF functions. It intersects with housing, it intersects with natural and cultural resources, it intersects with infrastructure, it intersects with health and human services, so and planning. And so these are the 6 recovery support functions. The first one, community assistance, is led by FEMA. Community assistance provides planning and technical assistance support, especially in communities that have limited resources or capacity. I've been doing this for a long time, and the question that comes up, or the issue that comes up time and time again, Jennifer, my friend at Central Florida Regional Planning Council, can attest to this. There's limited capacity, especially in our rural communities. So one of the things that we do at EDA, for example, is we provide support to our Regional Planning Council partners. In the aftermath of Hurricanes Helene and Milton, we provided augmented financial support.
No. That's not a choo-choo. That's not a choo-choo.
To the affected regions, so that they can conduct disaster recovery coordination efforts writ large, which means providing technical support to communities, using their natural convening power to bring communities together to look at regional solutions to these compounding problems. And so that's just one way that we provide support to help build capacity. So those are the six functions, and we intersect with all of these folks at the Joint Field Office in Tallahassee. Next slide, please. So basically, the RSFs are deployed by FEMA. So FEMA deploys, FEMA asks EDA to lead the Economic Recovery Support Function, and we have a mission assignment from FEMA to do that. This mission assignment is going to go until I think mid-March. We'll probably get an extension on that mission assignment. And with that mission assignment, we have a team that helps us to fan out and have disaster recovery workshops, which we're in the midst of doing. We had our first disaster recovery workshop in the East Central Florida region of Florida, covering eight counties there on Tuesday. We're going to have our next one with Jennifer's group in Sebring. We're very excited about that. And then we have our remaining recovery workshops that are going to take place in February. Now, when we have these disaster recovery workshops, we bring the entire IRC group cooperate with us. So, because we know that there are going to be issues that deal with, hey, we've had severe flooding. We need to mitigate for those flooding. We have drainage issues that we're concerned with. What I'm going to leave with you is to simplify all this. I've provided contact sheets for Jennifer to distribute. You all have them. So what's going to happen? What typically happens at a recovery workshop is we have these discussions about unmet needs, and then what we try to do is move towards finding potential projects to ameliorate these negative externalities, right? So, for example, after Hurricane Ian and Vaday hit, we had disaster recovery workshops across the state, and we had a number of projects that were identified to ameliorate flooding and things like that. So, for example, in one community in the city of Sanford in Seminole County, they applied to EDA to rebuild a seawall in part of their downtown area, and we provided funding to rebuild a seawall. Now, is EDA going to be involved in rebuilding seawalls across the board? Not necessarily. I mean, that could be a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer project. It could be a FEMA public assistance project. Our job as the IRC is to put those resources to the projects that are presented and give you folks the contact people so that you can have those further discrete, detailed conversations with. All you need to know from EDA standpoint is if you have a project that you're looking for EDA funding, call Greg, because I'm your point of contact. Simple. One person. I represent the state of Florida. So we try to, the IRC process and the RSFs under that umbrella assess the recovery needs of the communities that have been impacted. We identify partners and resources, again, putting people in touch with the correct folks that can provide the technical or funding assistance, and plan and help to implement recovery projects. Next slide, please. And so these are the various things that the RSF services can provide: technical assistance, resource coordination, planning support, regulatory guidance, capacity building, information sharing, sharing best practices. Hurricanes are messy, obviously, we understand that. They're complicated, they're not easy, there's no magic solution to overcome these impacts. But what I'll leave with you today is that Congress has appropriated significant disaster supplemental dollars in December. That congressional authorization obviously has been given to a wide swath of federal agencies, including EDA, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and all those federal agencies are promulgating specific what are called notice of funding opportunities. We're a grant making agency, so we're in the midst of developing a notice of funding opportunity, which will provide detailed instructions in terms of how do you come to EDA for support, for long-term economic recovery, what kind of projects might we support, what kind of grant levels might be available, and who would be eligible to apply for these funding sources. So that's the basic gist of it. I know I have a lot of my IRC partners on the call with us. We have people from FEMA and all the other RSFs that I mentioned. And I think, can you hit the next slide, please? Yeah, I think that's it. I wanted to keep it brief because I don't want to get into a lot of acronyms, and I'm trying to keep it as high level as possible. But happy to answer any questions. Do you want me to continue standing, or do you want me to sit down? I don't mind standing, so.
Yeah, or if you want to just sit on the corner, I think that the chair, well, didn't mean that. So for this discussion, each member will have up to 5 minutes to share an overview of how natural resources were impacted in their area by Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and what their recovery needs are for restoring those resources, be it drinking water, recreational waters, parks, environmental lands, wildlife habitats. IRC members are listening today. Most of them are online. The program will write up comments for them to provide specific written responses and contacts, which will be emailed back out to all of you. So with that, I will start with Mr. Smith down at the end.
Okay. I think storm surge hit the barrier islands really hard, both commercial and residential in Sarasota County. And Milton was more of a wind situation. However, what we've realized, we just had a stormwater workshop just a day or so ago, and we're going to be looking at how, for instance, Philippi Creek needs to be dredged. It hasn't been dredged in I don't know how long, and it's Milton ended up well, actually both hurricanes, but and Debbie also not included, ended up dropping a lot of silt and sand into it, which is seriously blocked and reduced the capacity of that Philippi Creek to get the stormwater to the bay. And so things like that, and also our maintenance of the dikes and things, but need to be looked at. But we're still evaluating, quite frankly. And it was an eye opener. Sarasota County hadn't gotten hit with a direct hit like that probably since Donna in 1960. Probably we were due. That's the way things work. It's architect. I've told folks it's not if, it's when, and that was when. So anyway, we're still evaluating, but to us, it's basically our drainage, stormwater drainage that we really need to look into.
Thank you. move on to his right. Thank you.
Well, I would echo those comments, especially throughout our region with stormwater. We have aging infrastructure, some newer infrastructure not built to future capacities that we're seeing the need for. We, of course, are hosting the listening session next Thursday, January 30th at the Sebring Civic Center, inviting, of course, all of our jurisdictions to the table. I think a lot of the details will be highlighted, but we've certainly seen impacts in all of our counties, the Lakeland area as well, but I'll refer to the communities here.
So, I'm Mandy Hines. I'm the county administrator here in the area in DeSoto. I've been with the county 20 years. And I wanted to go back from this is a project that CHNAP helped us with at one point, and this was the Amick, Foster and Wheeler. We had an engineering report done on unnatural erosion along the banks of the Peace River, the north end of the south trail of Morgan Park. And really that exacerbation started right after Charlie in '04 when it wiped out all the vegetation in the river. I mean, we'll never see those trees the same as they were pre-'04. And we lost, I think, 32 feet of bank of shoreline just because it ripped all the vegetation out, so there's no bank stabilization. So we partnered with CHNEP, who got an engineering study. We got the first portion of that. There were two segments. The first portion, which we hard armored with some grant funding through NRCS. So they hard armored that piece. The second piece is going to be predominantly vegetative replacement of native plants. We have a federal appropriation from 2023, which we're still working to get that STAG agreement. I think it's still in the NEPA review process for $2.5 million. But I think that that project was probably $3 million way back then. It's probably $5 or $6 million now, is the way costs have escalated. So that riverbank erosion, really just because it's not natural. It's not a natural change in the river. It's, disaster related. We also have a challenge on Peace River, right at the end of Peace River Street where the marina is at. I think I could find it, maybe it's probably 20 years ago, Keith, that it was dredged. And that silt and sand has built up so much there that it's probably it's a major dredge. So during tide, you can't get in there out. And it's right there, kind of at the mouth of Charlotte Harbor, right where that county line is. I don't know how much that impacts the flooding in that area, but that's another one. And then the waterway and stormwater clean out, is a big thing. If we could, we just completed yesterday an NRCS project. It was $26 million to clean out miles and miles of waterway. But there's a very short window post-storm that you have to do that letter of intent and get that stuff in, which we get it done. But how much better would it be if you could get some assistance cleaning out your stormwater pre an event rather than post an event, so you don't have to go in and clean it up. So like getting something in dry season could be really beneficial if we were doing more preventative stuff than cleanup stuff. And the last thing I'll share is just that, as Jennifer kind of referenced, in the local government perspective, it tends to be the infrastructure more than the natural resource impact that we'll have to deal with. It seems to be it's wastewater capacity. It's wastewater capacity and effluent disposal. And effluent disposal is becoming really hard in a wet state. So those are the only items I have from DeSoto.
Thank you.
I'll speak from the Water Management District standpoint, South Florida Water Management District standpoint, very briefly, because I don't want to take away from the local governments. We have 16 counties and a gazillion cities and municipalities, so I'd rather hear from them. We're working closely with FEMA and the DEP and Army Corps of Engineers on all our projects. Lots going on, and I'm not going to bore you all with it all now. I'd rather hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charlotte County, I'm Ken Doherty. I'm a county commissioner in Charlotte County. I've been a I'm a civil engineer, licensed civil engineer in the state of Florida. Lived in Charlotte County for 52 years now. Came down when I was 23. You can do the arithmetic. Bottom line is, yeah, this was an amazing 2.5 years. Actually, starting with Ian, in the last 4 months, it's just been a nightmare. Charlotte County, we have 2,000 properties from Helene and Milton that are classified destroyed or majorly damaged. We've lost about $654 million in taxable value, which has an ad valorem impact about $4 million. Our beaches and dune system have been devastated. We have a consultant that's just recently completed a recovery plan. We just took bids on it. Like everything else that we're dealing with now, it's way over what the original estimate was. But we're looking at needing to move about 1.3 million cubic yards off our beach to get them back on the beaches restored to the tune of about $60 million. So to put it all into perspective, small county, we're not an entitlement county. We have the 200,000 people, but we're applying actually a letter going to HUD in Miami next week. Our chairman's going to sign asking you to get that urban designation thing going so we can get qualified for CDBG grants in the future and maybe DR dollars. But quite honestly, the biggest problem we have right now is reimbursements. We need cash. We have, from Hurricane Ian, claims into, my understanding from staff, we have claims from Ian that are over 2.5 years old to the tune of $181 million. We reimbursed only 81. We have $100 million in cash that we need. And that's the problem. As a small county like ours, you have to front it. These contractors aren't going to wait for FEMA reimbursement. So we've really worked hard over the last 10 years, really. Well, actually longer than that. Charlie was where we realized, Hurricane Charlie, that we had to get reserves built up. So we got into debris removal and traffic control devices restored, spent a lot of money to get everything safe. But we just can't. We're coming into another hurricane season. We just don't have unlimited cash resources. So we really need that money. We met with Senator Rubio, now Secretary Rubio, on October 15th, and shared with him that cash is king here in Charlotte County right now. We need cash from FEMA. We need these things reimbursed. It was supposed to be an expedited process. It's not going quickly. That's our main need. We need cash. And then all these other things, we're trying to juggle them right now and to try to figure out how to do it. But a lot of folks are not happy with us because they think we should be able to rebuild everything. But when you can't get a definite answer from FEMA that they're going to reimburse, we don't even want to risk it yet. And we do have some money that we could front, but we're running out. So that's really the main statement from Charlotte County. Cash is king and we need cash. Here you go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Liz, do you have anything?
Sure, just briefly, Liz Fighter with the South District Office of the Department of Environmental Protection. Our role with this, we've had staff dedicated to assist the Department of Emergency Management with the wet debris or marine debris removal. So we've been sending staff to do some trainings with the contractors that are actually out doing the work to try to suggest ways that this can be done in the most minimal way possible to try to preserve what resources were left, basically, with the understanding that, sometimes we do have to have a little bit of damage to get the bigger things out, but to try to minimize that as much as possible. So that's really what we've been doing there, and then also helping various, either municipalities or citizens get an emergency field authorization to try to expedite any authorizations needed for recovery efforts. So that's really our sort of role with this.
You did give us that for NRC, so thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Cape Coral, basically, we got hammered by Ian, and we put a lot of things in place to help us recover from that. We had very good support from FEMA initially on that. We ran into problems in being able to justify some of the permitting processes and ran into insurance problems from that. The Cape was almost a tale of two cities, though, based on what the damage was from and then the continued damage that we received with Milton and other. Basically, the same people in the South Cape were affected by all three storms. So you have a lot of people who had went ahead and done a lot of rebuilding improvements and improved their properties as a result of response to Econ. They were again nailed again with both of those storms. I think that it brought out some infrastructure issues that we need to deal with, that we're attempting to do now. The Cape, again, it's a tale of two cities. The southern part of the Cape is a well-established infrastructure, probably undersized all over the place from a storm water drainage standpoint. We have a 500 and some miles of canals, and that hydraulic limitation that we have being able to drain into the canals is certainly affected very much during tidal surge. And basically we try to live with that, but it's causing us to go back on some of the real impingement points in the infrastructure of the storm water system. And they're looking at things like possibly charging pump stations so that it minimizes the economics of putting in resiliency, but it's still a major challenge. To say that we're over and have adapted well to it, we certainly got a lot more work to do. It caused us to reorganize our whole response. We formed a new emergency response department, carved out that as a storm combating mode and a resiliency mode, and charged them with all of that resiliency management program and preparedness program. So I think that was one of the things that we did that was very forward thinking, because we're seeing the benefits of all that. Again, the Cape's up to 240,000 people. The north part of the city hasn't been as affected by the storms, of course, it's a little bit higher. But we are affected by storms, the highest property values and the more dense population in the city. So we're still struggling. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
I represent the city of Sanibel. It's been affected by 3 storm surges in the last couple of years. Ian was 13 feet of storm surge. Milton was 5 feet. You know, there's a tendency to think about repairs and resilience, and of course there's a great deal of overlap. You know, in terms of repairs, one of the things that comes to mind is restoring our beach dune system, which has been mentioned by others. We've accomplished a lot of sand nourishment, but the dunes need to be restored and vegetated in order to create more resilience against future storm surge. We have repair needs with respect to our transportation system. We have 53 miles of roads, 26 miles of shared use path, which are an important part of the island for our tourist economy. And all of those pavements were significantly damaged by the 3 storm surges. Well, our police station was damaged by Ian. It also serves as our unified command center that needs to be repaired and restored. We have a sewer system which includes 164 lift stations. Those involve electrical panels that need to be repaired but elevated to be more resilient in the future. And then we have some pure resilience issues simply because we are an island connected by a causeway. What happens if the causeway goes away? We need a barge landing facility, both in the mainland and the island. And then the last thing that comes to mind, kind of complicated, but water on the island is provided by a nonprofit organization called Island Water Association. They use a water purification system that involves chlorine system, which involves the use of 1-ton cylinders. And for reasons that I'm not sure I totally understand, but if the causeway is out, they cannot be brought to the island by barge because of the safety issue. So the solution is to convert the water purification process to the state of the art, which is a system involving carbon dioxide injection and a sodium hypochlorite solution. But that's relatively expensive. We're talking in the vicinity of $15 million. So those are some of the needs we have.
Hey, Ms. Randall.
Yes.
I'm Joan Farrell, City Council, Venice, Florida. Our first thing is, I have to agree with Commissioner Smith. I think Sarasota County and Venice, we need to clean out all the ditches, and of course, there's a lot of finger pointing as to whose ditch it is. We always say, it's theirs, and they say it's ours, and then sometimes it's on private property. But I do have by good information that Northport had a super flooding problem, and they decided, we'll just clean out the ditches, and it worked. So, go figure, too easy. Second one, Casperson Beach, which might even be outside of Venice city limits. It was completely destroyed between the three we just had. Ian did not take it out, but it was, the road was starting to get ready to fall over. The road is gone. Heavy equipment, Sarasota County paid for it, by the way. But so now the beach is nice and flat. The road is piled up in the parking lot, but it's ready to be opened. So I hope it will be opened sometime soon. The bathrooms are right there still, so that would be really nice. The third thing, Swift Mud, Southwest Florida Water Management District. I hope they will ride herd on all the development that's going on, because what happens, and I have this also by good authority, our assistant city manager, is anytime there's new development, they bring in a lot of dirt, compress the soil, and it's usually a foot or two higher than the surrounding whatever, and to the effect that anybody who's right by them gets flooded because it goes right down. So SwiftMud, please pay attention. Don't let any of these developers hoodoo you with site plans that are inadequate. The fourth thing is mangroves. I won't say that it was exactly from the recent hurricanes, but mangroves have been decimated either through too much hardening, too many seawalls, etc. And evidently some sort of fungi has been taking them out for about 4 or 5 years. Right now, the city of Venice is getting a consult from Marine Resources Council. There is a fix to the fungi. It's kind of easy. I think it's Epsom salts and some sulfur or something. They put the young mangroves in it and soak them in it for 48 hours, and it kind of inoculates them against this contagion that's coming along. But I think we need to evaluate where the mangroves used to be and where we can put them in now. It's a cheap fix, and we need to do it. So thank you so much.
Bill Braswell, County Commissioner, Polk County. Last few years have been kind of business as usual for us with hurricanes. We have changed our motto from the crossroads of Florida to the crossroads of every hurricane. We've gotten used to it after we had 4 go over in 2003 and 4. We've backed up everything we can with generators. We've solved a lot of problems that way. And we feel like we're kind of ahead. And this summer in particular, I think the biggest disaster we had, we had the usual flooding. We had some unusual flooding, but it ran off quick, 18 inches of rain. We're not going to kid ourselves and think we can mitigate that. It's just going to happen. But what didn't happen directly affects this group was the fact that we have a sewage treatment plant in Bartow, just a few feet above the Peace River. We really They manage the water. Lake Hancock is the source of a lot of water for Peace River. It has a dam on it. It was regulated very well this time. We've seen it not so well regulated in the past. And what I mean by that was the people behind it got flooded. Once you're flooded, you're flooded. When your house is wet, your house is wet. They realized if we open it and drain the county quicker, we're going to flood people down here. And they held back. They didn't do it. Yes, the water stayed in people's homes longer than they wanted, but you know they were going to have to redo them anyway. So that was a real good decision. But at the same time, the sewage treatment plant in Bartow had the water overwhelmed it, and it would have had they opened the floodgates even a little bit. You would feel it down here because that sewer plant it is right there, and it would not only just stop it from functioning, it's going to back up and discharge into the Peace River in a big way, and you all know where that's going. So, but other than that, you know, I think we're in a good position. We're almost done with cleanup. Looks like about 1 million cubic yards of debris we'll pick up. Nobody's happy that it's taken this long, but what's nice is FEMA has extended the 100% refund or whatever you want to call it for the cleanup, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
I am commissioner for City of Winter Haven. We did have a lot of debris and trees. I mean, it was really seemed like a long doing, but when you have that many together, it's kind of you overcome one and you got the same thing, and then a couple of weeks later you got the same thing again. It reminded me of Charlie, Francis, and Jean. Whenever you just about get your straightened up, and then you get another one, and so that's kind of what we've had is 3 probably in the last 2 years, and we did have some infrastructure failures, and I think that's not a lot. Some small discharges, those were taken care of. And we are moving from generators to bypass pumps, because mechanically, if your generator goes down, you have nothing. So if the bypass pump, you can still keep going. So we're changing some of those out, and we have quite a few. That's going to be the new thing, I think, for generators.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to talk. I'm Keith Keene. I'm a city council member from the city of Arcadia. I've been on the council since 2009. Born and raised in Arcadia. My first hurricane was Hurricane Donna in 1960. I was 7, so do the math. I came prepared to share today about Helene and Milton, and thought, well, I'm going to get an easy pass because we were very fortunate that not a whole lot happened in Arcadia from those two, but we're still reeling from Hurricane Ian. We're making a lot of progress. I am so excited that we're moving forward with our wastewater treatment plant. It's been a huge struggle because, as someone said about, you ask for a bid, you get the bid, then you price things out, and next thing you know, it's twice as much as what was originally thought. But we're making some great progress there. We've been able to pick up the last piece of property that we needed to. Had to buy a house to be able to expand our footprint for our wastewater treatment plant. So I could go on and on. Mandy touched on a lot of the things that I could say about DeSoto, but I do want to bring this up. Since we're talking about FEMA, we've got EPA here. The city of Arcadia, as a result of Hurricane Ian, was able to participate in what they call an R2P2 program. And my gosh, what a home run was hit with that. We've got a couple of projects that I hope will result from that that are going to be impactful to our community. And I always want to give my hats off to a guy named Drew Parker with the EPA, who was fantastic in helping out with this. And Jennifer, Central Florida Regional Planning Council as well. Hats off to you guys. But some of the things that we're still trying to, that we could maybe need some assistance with is drainage issues. You know, continuing to improve our stormwater system. Because as you know, in Ian, Arcadia was an island. The only way you could get out was to go west, and even that was precarious to get around. Because I remember taking the airboat ride with now Secretary and our governor, you know, and it was just something like we've never seen, and I thought I had seen it all. And I did want to make one final thing, since we're talking about hurricanes. If you've seen one hurricane, you've seen one hurricane. They're all different. They're all different. Some are wind events, some are rain events. And I'm going to tell you, Ian was nothing like I had ever experienced with the way it just stayed on us, pounded and pounded and pounded. So that's all I've got.
So I'm Dawn Ritter. I'm the National Resource Manager for Highlands County. I'm sitting in for Commissioner Kerouac this morning. I'm going to mimic much of what you guys said today. The dredging is a concern in our area. We had a lot of silt. For us on Milton, thankfully, it wasn't as bad as the past ones, but we did get a lot of wind action. It would be great to be proactive versus reactive when it comes to the waterways and cleaning it out. And there was confusion as to private property or us and that sort of thing. Right now, we do have a lot of manual structures, and it would be great if we could convert those. Does seem pretty dangerous for our team going out there and manually pulling boards. And again, when it's throughout the county and you're rushing, and you got a lot of water coming, it is a scary thing for the Highlands County team. So if there's any information associated with making that kind of transformation, we would really love to know it. We do have, you know, not only for cleaning the ditches, but also erosion control. Like, I don't want to go in there and we just clean it, not even think about erosion control. Like, we do kind of want to mediate the water versus rushing it. But for Milton, this was for a hurricane for us. Less than a hurricane. It didn't hit as bad, but we still have some reimbursement concerns regarding Irma. So those are a little bit issues too. So hopefully the next few seasons will be relatively quiet. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't read your name at the end.
Oh, I'm Alyssa Powers, but I'm not authorized to speak at this, so I don't know if Commissioner Phelps is still online. She's a representative for this committee.
Commissioner Phelps, are you on the line? Would you like to go first from those of you on the line? You'll need to unmute yourself if you're there. I know she said she was going to be in and out.
Yeah.
I don't know who's a member on there.
Yeah, I can't say. Okay. So I'll start making a list, but next up will be John Hall.
Okay, Mr. Hall, do you have any comments to make?
We did have some damage, of course, with the two hurricanes that we had. I do not have a list of that with me today. So in the interest of brevity, I'll end this and let someone else go that does need to get their list ready for whoever's going to be receiving it.
Thank you, sir. Lori Fahey, did you have any, want to give a report out? Okay, Mayor Pfeiffer? Okay, Ally McHugh, did you have any thing you wanted to report out?
Hey, good morning. Just a quick couple things. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. So we've heard it mentioned a few times, but the speed of which Money is disseminated has been the largest challenge that we at FWC have experienced. Following any hurricane or natural disaster, we typically immediately start working with folks in the industry. So that's your charter operators, your fishing boats and captains, aquaculture, and meet with those folks that have been directly impacted immediately after the storm. And the thing that we need help with the most is being able to give them assistance as quickly as possible. And the lag time between us establishing what those needs are and actually being able to help through federal funding programs is multiple years. So 1 to 3 years is typically what we tell folks to expect. And so any help that we can get in expediting that is always going to be appreciated. In addition to that, the impacts to public peers, restaurants, lost wages for those in the industry, all of that greatly impact FWC and our constituents. So I'll leave it short and sweet like that, but that's really the biggest needs that we have.
Thank you, Ms. McHugh. We'll go back to Mayor Pfeiffer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. I was trying to unmute when you called me, but nice to join today. And I appreciate Commissioner Braswell, who kind of gave a micro report on our wastewater treatment plant in the last couple of hurricanes. And he did a good job of describing the vulnerability there. So that is become a huge concern for us because of the intensity of these storms. And this one we were able to, we were a little bit lucky because Lakeland and the county worked with the district and us and mitigated the flow of the rivers up north in the Lakeland area, Lake Hancock area, to protect the Peace River level and our water plant. And we were lucky that Winter Haven didn't have as much water as, say, Lakeland, or we would have been in big trouble. So, and also since we seem to be the magnet for hurricanes coming across us, who would have thought? It is going to be a continuing concern for us. So did really just want to touch on that point, and listening to everything else. I concur with whoever it was saying about our growth, and her term was growth is choking us. And, you know, we're feeling that here too. So it's important that we continue to do our best to try to either conserve or approve growth that we want to see the future be. So, and that includes all of our infrastructures with water and road and all of that. So all those concerns are weighing heavily on all of us public officials. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Mayor. Anyone else online that we may have missed that wanted to give comment?
This is Lori Fahey with the Village of Estero Council. And I just wanted to say I had trouble unmuting earlier, but I have nothing more to share. This has been very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you see anybody else on there? No. Okay.
Chair,
yes.
Just one more comment that I forgot to mention. One of the things that we ran into with Econ and the aftermath of Econ, having no electricity for about 5 days, all of the large shopping centers, the Publix and the other large grocers, really didn't have emergency backup, and or they ran out of backup very quickly. And so we have put together a partnership relationship trying to help them have emergency generation backup, and looking at maybe even portable units that we could secure and move around during the next issue. So that's something you normally wouldn't think of as an infrastructure issue from a city standpoint, but it was very helpful to recognize that that was something that was really a major issue for us. I just wanted to share that with everyone. Thank you.
That's interesting. You know, the rural water associations generally have groups where they will, if generators are needed in a certain area, they have them all stored in a warehouse and they will send them to the area. I wonder if grocers could do something similar within the state, where, they would deploy those generators to, certain areas in the state that might need them. I know that has worked well for the rural water associations.
You would
So-
think someone like a Publix who has such a mass presence
point.
in Florida and the southern states might pick up on that pretty quickly.
Good point, very good point. Since we have time, if the IRC has follow-up questions. Okay, so does the IRC have any follow-up questions?
I'll defer to the folks.
We'll defer to the folks online.
I don't have any questions.
Anyone from the IRC online that might have questions or need clarification from any of the items that were discussed today?
This is Tony Kraus, the Infrastructure Systems. I don't really have any questions or anything, but just want to put it back out there. If you guys have any infrastructure needs or those flood risk type questions, feel free to send me an email and we can start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Tony.
I have one more question of the IRC.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned there's a lot of funding available that came through. With the continuing budget resolution due, I think it's due in February again.
Yeah, I think it's March.
March 14th.
Okay, so based on that, do you see any change? I'm asking, do you have your crystal ball out because no one really knows? But do you anticipate any change in that availability of that funding?
You mean?
With the new administration, with the new Congress that's in there, it's hard to tell, right?
I can't really speak to that. I mean, I know it's been obviously it's been voted on, passed, and it is legislation right now. I'm not sure how the CR impacts that, only perhaps from a timing perspective, I think, but I don't foresee any. I can't see any other issues on that.
Okay, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. You almost have to be a good guesser.
Yeah. I just want to make a couple of overarching comments. And one is in relation to the disaster supplemental which was passed. I think it's going to be important for folks, and I appreciate all the comments about pre-disaster activities and being proactive. Think comprehensively as much as possible. And I'm an urban planner by background before I got into economic development. So I was involved in a lot of the issues that you folks are, discussing today. So what I would say is, as you're thinking about these projects, from EDA standpoint, we can address multiple elements within one scope of work. So in other words, if you're doing a drainage project, we have a drainage project application in right now, which also happens to be a roads resurfacing project. So the point I'm making is you don't have to limit yourself to one specific thing. You can give us the project whole as it is with all the needs that are required and all the benefits you think that project is going to have. And really it's incumbent on the IRC then to take that large scope of work and take it apart essentially if need be, right? There are some things that one agency might be able to do in terms of doing the whole thing. And there may be situations where that seawall project that I mentioned with you, that's something that EDA did in and of ourselves and our own auspices. But there are times when other federal agencies may take a certain piece of a project, and we may take another piece. And so all that to say, be comprehensive, use this time to really think about how your communities can become more resilient going forward, and obviously, try to take that longer term time horizon. I know it's hard to look 3 to 5 years down the line, but I think it is important because from an infrastructure standpoint too, from our standpoint at EDA, and I'm sure Tony Cross will appreciate this from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, if you're asking a federal agency to rebuild or build new infrastructure that has been impacted, build resiliency in the infrastructure in and of itself. So for example, I think that the gentleman from Sanibel Island, we're looking at a project right now to elevate a master lift station in a coastal community in Southwest Florida. I won't mention where it is, but one of the issues that came up during our review was the master lift station going to be elevated to the proper elevation to avoid future storm surge and things like that. So these are the kind of questions we're used to and we're going to be looking at. All that to say, take the time to plan the infrastructure and make sure that it's elevated to the proper elevation, make sure that it's developed to the proper the proper base and all the other things that a good civil engineer will understand. I'm not a civil engineer, but I know enough to be dangerous. So just use the opportunity now to sort of sort of plan it now so that it will last and it will withstand impacts going forward potentially. So I just wanted to share that with you folks.
Thank you.
I'm Tony here. I definitely agree. Just spent a little time in Maui doing this last year. And they have this 7 generation thing. Your current generation, 3 in the future, 3 in the past. If you're going to build infrastructure, build it for your kids, build it for your grandkids, build it for what they're going to need as best as you can understand in the future. You don't build infrastructure for today. You don't build infrastructure for yourself. You build it for the future.
Thank you, Tony. Yes.
I just kind of wanted to add on to what Greg said as some of the examples of projects that EDA can bring to the table, for example. So as a result of Hurricane Ian, we now have 2 critical studies going on, one in Hardee County and one in Polk County. And it allows us to look at some of our critical roadway corridors, which do also carry a significant amount of water, for lack of better terms, with the Peace River watershed, but it also allows us to look at the development potential, what we already have, the challenges we're facing with stormwater modeling, as well as that development potential and what the infrastructure capacities will need to be. But those are significant studies, one along the US 17 corridor in Hardee, and then in Polk will include State Road 60, as well as the legs off of US 17 and US 27. And those bring together a number of fields of expertise as well as those jurisdictions, but really looking at that development potential, but also accommodating for, what does this work look at considering natural resources and the infrastructure. So that's a very significant study that has been provided through EDA in post-Ian recovery.
And I'll just add to what you said, Jennifer. Thank you for citing that example. Once those studies are complete, it's always a possibility for a community to go back and say, can we implement some of the recommendations that have come out of that? And some of those recommendations can then be transferred into projects. So I'm just saying this to emphasize the fact that you want to move from the planning to the implementation. You want to keep your mind in both camps, so to speak. But know that many federal agencies will be able to support implementation projects. And so that's a really important precursor, because you want to know what you can build and where you can build it and where where industry might be located and things of that nature. So those studies are very important as you develop those projects, as you think about developing the projects.
All right, great. So as I had said earlier, the next steps are that the CHNEP will write up the comments for the IRC to provide written responses and get those back to you all. So I think we're ready to move on. Okay. All right, next item on